my friends at home can hear. So roughly 500 million Buddhists in the world, about 4 million in the United States. And their chief, it seems to me, and again, I put this disclaimer out there each week, I really don't know a whole lot more about this than what you have just witnessed. I read a chapter in a book, and then I come and stand before you as some kind of expert on this, or at least as the teacher of the class, and I really don't know a whole lot more than what you have just experienced. But it seems that the goal in this particular faith is to learn how to deal with the problems of this world, suffering in this world, and to find a place of, though he didn't use the word contentment, or to learn how to kind of get away from the pressures of this world and just find this inner peace about yourself. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. My question I've always started with, who has experienced or knows someone that comes from a Buddhist tradition? Anyone? Anyone? And we have one. What would you like to tell us? Educate us. I'm going to let you take. They're listening at home. Like 12 million people in
My first wife was from Thailand, and she did her prayers. There was no chanting, so I'm not sure what sect he was talking about when he talked about Thailand. She would burn 3 sticks of incense, bow 3 times to her statue of Buddha, and say prayers in Thai, which I never fully understood. I couldn't speak the language, let's put it that way. She felt coming to America, it was more important for her to learn English than for me to learn Thai. However, after about 8 years here in the States, I was fortunate enough to get her to go to church with me, and the minister there was able to obtain a King James version of the Bible in her language. She started reading that, and about 6 months into that, she decided she needed to be baptized. So when she gave up being Buddhist, we couldn't throw the statue away. We have him buried in the backyard, and if anyone wants to go find it, it's at 152 Glengarry.
Hope you didn't hear that. Well, that is very, very interesting, Rich. So, I mean, here is an example of basically what this entire series is about is, around us are people of different faiths. And is it possible to begin a discussion with them about Christianity? And here we have an example of that very thing taking place. And so the answer to the question is absolutely. It is yes. And yet I'm sure there's a whole lot more to do with that. But I want to say this without knowing the whole situation. I would imagine part of that had to do, Rich, without putting words in your mouth, had to do with your respecting her particular tradition or faith and, learning how to communicate with her about that in some way.
I did not fight with her about it.
Yeah, versus... gave her time versus you're wrong, here's all the reasons I can show you that you're wrong. It doesn't seem to get us too many places. So the Buddhist faith is interesting. Was there anybody else that knows someone or that has a relationship? I don't think anybody can trump that one. So that the ultimate goal is to basically not exist. and if you want to think about it from that candle perspective, that your candle burns for maybe thousands of years, and all of these lifetimes, these reincarnated lifetimes that you have to live. And if you can ever get to the point to where your candle can be blown out, and therefore you do not exist, then you have reached you can't say the word final destination because they don't really believe in a destination, but you have just, you have found the place of nirvana, that is of nothingness. It seems like that would be a really good place to have a conversation, that Because our view is the exact opposite of that, isn't it? That we live eternally forever with our Father in heaven and with our loved ones who have come to know Christ as their Savior. But that seems to be a bit of what they are seeking in this lifetime, or all of these different lifetimes that you have to live. And so in my study, it seemed like the highest level that you can reach in this life before you reach nothingness is to be a monk. That to be a monk, you're closer. And again, you can't say closer to God, because you notice there is no God. They don't believe in God. They just believe that you can escape this world and escape this life. That is, then you have found, you have been delivered from the suffering in this life. Don't ask me a hard question. Yeah. Who decides this?
In Thailand, every young man serves time to be a monk. They have about 300,000 monks in Thailand.
Well, that's what I was going to say, but he said, that's interesting. Yeah, I did.
I have 4 ex-brother-in-laws, and all 4 of them served some time being a monk. So it's not like their life career. One of them became a doctor, one of them owns a restaurant. They go into other professions, but they spend 6 months to a year as a monk.
So this, the meditation, I guess in as much as anything, when you think about Buddhism, you think about someone sitting there with legs crossed and, I'm sure I'm not doing it right, but some form of doing your fingers, and you are, for that moment in time, if you can empty your mind enough, you experience this freedom from the pressures of life and from suffering in life. And it may only last but for a moment, but you enjoy that moment of kind of refreshing, of not feeling your problems and troubles and suffering. And so I want to talk about that in just a moment, because that is an interesting approach, because when we think of Buddhism, I think that's one of the first things that comes to our mind. So these four truths, that life is to live is to suffer, and the reason you suffer is because of these cravings that you have of wanting or not wanting, but cravings. You've got, in order to eliminate suffering, you've got to eliminate your cravings. And so to eliminate your cravings, then you follow these 8 different paths. And they are everything from having the right view of things, having the right resolve in your life to, I don't want cravings, I don't want, these yearnings in this life. And I'm sure, I assume that's both for material things, physical things, emotional things, that as you grow in your lifetimes, that you detach from those things and you become more of a contented person. I've got right behaviors, and it says in here, foremost of which is avoiding killing any living thing. So was she a vegetarian? No. Okay. So, yeah, and so, to avoid killing any living thing. And then it just goes down. Yeah, right occupations, which is to become a monk. Do they have female monks? Well, sorry, ladies, you're out. I don't know how I'm sure there's a way that is figured out and justified. Maybe when you come back in your next life, you're a male and therefore you can be a monk. Maybe that's how they do it. I truly don't know. But just the right efforts, the right mindset, the right meditation. So you get rid of the cravings of this life. Now, in Christianity, there are some similarities, and that is that we realize that we don't need to be consumed with the things of this world, but that we find our peace and we find our purpose and we find our relationship with God through Jesus Christ. And so we run from materialism. But we also run from living this lifestyle of we have no contact with anyone. That our goal is not to go live in some far-off place where there's no one else so that I don't feel any pressures. We're to go into all the world and interact with people and share the gospel. So you can see a lot of differences there.
Maybe this is just a question for everybody, and I'm posing this to you, but
Good.
I guess I'm a little fuzzy on it. I understand where the idea comes from, like your suffering comes from you. Well, how come maybe sometimes we suffer because of nature, or we suffer because of somebody else's action? Where does that fit into the Buddhist theology?
Yeah. So, we have other people's suffering that imposes upon our lifestyle or something. I mean, all those are good points to consider and good questions. So their whole thing is built around this idea of suffering and getting away from suffering. And so, in our lifetime as Christians, then, we try to understand suffering, and we certainly don't, enjoy it, but we give our suffering to God, and we hope to discover something more meaningful about life. You do have to appreciate, to an extent, their ability to meditate. You said that she prayed in the morning and the evening for how long?
15, 20 minutes.
15, 20 minutes. I mean, yeah. So, who in this room prays twice a day for 15, 20 minutes? I hope we all do, but most of us would confess mine's chopped up into a lot more different time frames. But I know most people I know have a hard time with pushing out the pressures of this world, whether it's, getting away from this thing, or just turning off the TV, or just the pressures that we are on us at work or with family or anything else, and just spending time clearing our minds and focusing on better things. I think that somebody says, well, I don't know how to meditate, and I've often heard it said like this, well, if you know how to worry, you know how to meditate, because meditation is just thinking on good things, worry is dwelling on bad things. And so, now the difference, of course, as he said, was our purpose is not to empty our minds. What is our purpose as far as meditation is concerned? Yeah, fill our mind with Christ. We want to know Christ. We want to know His direction, His purpose for our lives. And so that's a big difference. But, I do look at someone that is able to sit very still and to just focus for a period. I mean, I put a challenge. Start with 5 minutes and just try to tune everything out for 5 minutes. I mean, go outside into the woods out here or just in your own home and just get rid of all distractions. But to think about doing that like 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening is a real challenge. I've seen on people's desks and everything these little sand things and rocks, and they rake, those things. I've seen those before. So, he said those are not about words. Those are just about quietness and kind of harmony of things, I guess he said. And then, Jason, the clock you fixed isn't working back there. Oops, and my time is all gone. So I'll finish up with this. Again, the Buddha being detached, the Buddha is celebrated by having arrived at being detached from anything in this life, whereas our God is celebrated for coming to us in this life and experiencing our life and then helping us to get through this life into eternal life. So there's some serious differences there, but there are points of contact and discussion. Does anybody have anything that you were wanting to say before we dismiss? Because time is all gone. But yeah, these are all challenges, and they're all things to contemplate and to, just an introduction to a different perspective of how some people live life and understand life. Next week, it's going to be the Sikh religion. And this one is interesting, and I'll go ahead and just There are some very, very high-profile people in our country that have an identity with the Sikh religion. So I know that most of us, I don't know anything about that, but there are some high-level politicians, there are some high-level people that adhere to this. And so you'll watch for those next week. But that'll be a very different and very interesting religion to study. Hey, thank you for being here. I appreciated your feedback last week. You said that you are getting something from these. We'll get back to our study of the book of Genesis very quickly. But for the next few weeks, we're going to continue just kind of reviewing these world religions and how we may be able to be a point of contact for Jesus in these different faiths. Thanks for joining online, and see you on the Lord's Day.